Good afternoon. Welcome to Channel 44. We are here yet again to bring you today's news in brief, both locally and internationally. I am Mercy Gashegu Sembatia, together with Livingstone Kawesi for sign language interpretation and translation, and
Here is Bill Clinton to make sure that you get the news in brief that are already from the soil of this Pearl of Africa, Uganda. To begin with, the new Emmanuel Omodinga replaces his father for Sereri Country Member of Parliament seat. Emmanuel Omodinga has turned down 4 candidates to replace his late father, Patrick Okabe, as the Sereri Honorary Member of Parliament. Omodinga, who is an independent candidate, managed to score a number above of the rest of 15,638 votes ahead of his fellow contendants, Philip Owol of National Resistance Movement with 13,206 votes, Alice Alaso of the Alliance National Transformation with 3,335 votes, followed by Martin Ongwe Chiro Independent with 2,523 votes, while Forum for Democratic Change, Emmanuel Elatu, also trailed with 1,252 votes. Accordingly, as returning officers for Sereri Electoral District, and in accordance with Section 58, Clause 1 of the Parliamentary Election Act as amended, Cheptegei declared Omodinga Emmanuel as the merged winner of the parliamentary seat for Sereri District. Additionally, a UN Security Council resolution on the DR Congo during a special session yesterday, the United Nations Security Council officials condemned the M23 rebels for propelling insecurity in eastern DR Congo. The United Nations Security Council also called for immediate ceasefire and urged Rwanda to halt any alleged support to M23 rebel activities in North Kivu area. During the special session, UN Security Council officials also condemned the Russian-Ukraine war ahead of the UN General Assembly session today, where member states are expected to vote on the way forward on the now one-year-long conflict that was also globally affected by the price of commodities, that has also globally affected the price of commodities in different states. Speaking ahead of the UN General Assembly vote on the Russian-Ukraine war, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, informed press that the UN General Assembly will vote on the resolution that calls the member states to support diplomacy and comprehensive and lasting peace in Ukraine. She will see where all nations stand on this matter of peace in Ukraine tonight. Outside the Pearl of Africa, Mercy.
In Mozambique, authorities are setting up shelters and preparing to evacuate in high-risk areas people in the South African country as they brace themselves for Cyclone Freddy. The powerful cyclone made a landfall in neighboring Madagascar on Tuesday, where it killed 5 people and is expected to intensify before it hits south-central Mozambique today. The provinces of Sofala, Inhambane, Manica, and Gaza provinces are the most at risk, according to officials. A red alert had been issued by the National Risk Management Agency that allows for response operations to be expedited. Heavy rains have already caused flooding in some parts of the country, and authorities say additional rain from the cyclone might affect up to 1.750 million people. In Zimbabwe, officials say they will close schools today in areas likely to be affected. People have also been warned against crossing swollen rivers, and miners warned against going underground. The cyclone is expected to bring high winds and heavy rains to eastern, southern, and central Zimbabwe. A controversial leader of a Nigerian secessionist movement has been arrested at his home in Finland. Simon Ekpa has allegedly used social media to incite violence. He leads a faction with the indigenous people of Biafra, which is fighting for a breakaway state in southeastern Nigeria. The area has seen deadly attacks on candidates in Saturday's election, which he has urged people to boycott. Mr. Ekpa, a Finnish citizen of Nigerian origin, denies any links to the killings and violence in the region, saying that they were carried out by the Nigerian government. In Europe, Moldova's pro-EU leaders have rejected Russia's claims that Ukraine is planning to attack the country's breakaway pro-Russian territory and called for calm. Russia's defense ministry alleged with no evidence that Ukrainian saboteurs would stage an invasion of Transnistria dressed as Russian soldiers as a pretext for a Ukrainian invasion. Moldova has warned for weeks that Russia is plotting to seize power, and officials rejected Russia's claims as psyops as part of the war. The UN General Assembly in New York has overwhelmingly backed a resolution condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine nearly a year ago. It called for the withdrawal of troops from Ukraine and a halt to fighting. The motion was backed by 141 nations, with 32 abstaining and 7, including Russia, voting against. In Vienna, a large number of delegates walked out during a Russian address at a parliamentary session of a European security body. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe walkout and the UN vote came a day before the first anniversary of the invasion. An unmanned space capsule has been launched from Kazakhstan to help bring home 3 astronauts on the International Space Station after their original return vehicle was damaged by a tiny meteoroid. The capsule is scheduled to dock at the ISS on Sunday, but is not expected to bring home the 3 astronauts until September. In Asia, hundreds of thousands of North Koreans may be exposed to radioactive materials creeping into water, according to a non-government organization based in Seoul. This is also a risk to people in China, South Korea, and Japan, according to the Transitional Justice Working Group. The group is urging South Korea to offer radiation exposure tests for defectors who have lived near Punggye-ri, the North's main nuclear site. It estimates that up to 540 residents may be at risk, and the group, which was established in Seoul in 2014 by activists and researchers from South Korea, North Korea, US, and UK, and Canada, analyzed publicly available data and open source intelligence for its latest report. In the United States, a massive winter storm that has brought blizzards and sub-freezing temperatures to much of the U.S. has nearly left 1 million households without power. The number of customers without electricity has grown to over 945,000 across 5 states on day 2 of the storm, 820 in Michigan alone. Over 6,000 U.S. flights were cancelled or delayed on Thursday, according to FlightAware data. Meanwhile, other parts of the U.S. experienced unusually warm weather. Temperatures in Washington, D.C. hit 81 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday, a February high not seen since 1874. And still in the U.S., President Joe Biden has named Indian-American businessman Ajay Banga as the U.S. pick to lead the World Bank. The move comes as the U.S. increases pressure on the bank to put more emphasis on tackling climate change. Mr. Banga led credit card giant MasterCard for more than a decade and now works in private equity. U.S. officials said he has the experience to help the bank to work with the private sector towards its goals. It is up to the bank's board to officially appoint its next head. And on the continent of Africa, Burkina Faso's military government has announced a drive to recruit another 5,000 soldiers to help in the fight against jihadists. Defense Minister Colonel Kasum Kolibali said the recruits may be between 20 and 35 years old and be prepared to serve in the army for at least 5 years. A week ago, more than 50 soldiers were killed in the north of the country. At least 15 others were reported to have died on Monday in an ambush by militants affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group. Since the Islamic insurgency began in 2015, nearly 2 million people have been displaced. And finally, 15 African countries yesterday abstained and 28 supported the vote as the UN General Assembly in New York overwhelmingly backed a resolution condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine nearly a year ago. The resolution called for the withdrawal of troops from Ukraine and a halt to fighting. The measure is not legally binding but holds political weight. It was backed by 141 nations, with 32 abstaining and 7 voting against. Almost half of abstentions were from Africa. South Africa, Ethiopia, Algeria, Angola, Burundi, Namibia, Central African Republic, Congo, Brazzaville, Gabon, Guinea, Mozambique, Sudan, Togo, Uganda, and Zimbabwe abstained in the vote. Eritrea and Mali were the only African countries who voted against. Senegal, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Eswatini, and Guinea-Bissau did not take part in the voting. Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Egypt, Ghana, and Kenya were among the African countries who backed the vote. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed the resolution, which he described as a powerful signal of global support. Today marks exactly a year since the full-scale invasion began in Ukraine.
Initially, we saw why Uganda was standing neutral in this election of determining what shall happen in Ukraine. As we are looking forward to it tonight, we shall see where states stand in this matter, therefore. And then congratulations to Emmanuel Amoding for Selele District. We continue to say that you shall have more details of the business transactions of this news in the bulletin of 4.
Yes.
What do you say?
That is it from our news desk. Pastor Jessica Kanja is coming up next. Enjoy your afternoon.
Bye-bye.